Of all the confounding results in this past election, perhaps the strangest phenomenon was the surprising number of people who voted for Democrats down ballot and then checked off Donald Trump for president. That was the case in New York's 14th district. A number of voters cast their ballot for both Trump and one of the House's most progressive Democrats, Congresswoman Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, better known as AOC. And while the Democratic Party is still reeling from the results, Congresswoman Ocasio-Cortez is doing something a lot of the D.C. folks aren't doing, which is talking to social media and actually talking to voters to figure out why this happened.
If you voted for Donald Trump and me, or if you voted for Donald Trump and voted Democratic down ballot, I would really love to hear from you. This is not a place of judgment. I'm not gonna put your stuff on blast or anything like that or dunk on it. That's genuinely not the intent here. I actually want to learn from you. I want to hear what you were thinking, and I just want to hear from you.
Joining me now is the aforementioned Democratic Congresswoman Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez of New York. Okay, AOC, what'd they say?
I mean, there's a lot of different things that we saw. I think there's a lot of people. First of all, it's important to note that Democrats, oftentimes when we lose elections, we think that we lost people to Trump. And that is true in circumstances, but they don't look enough at the fact that we also lost people to the couch. Mm-hmm. We have two people that we're running against. So a lot of people say, this is why I voted for you and Trump. And some people say this is why I didn't vote or didn't vote top of the ticket.
Right. Skip the top of the ticket, which, by the way, there's been a lot of paranoia about the fact that Democrats were able to win statewide in some places while Kamala Harris lost. And I keep trying to tell people there are voters who go in and either just vote the top, Trump voters who will say, I just want Trump and don't care about Republicans, and the reverse, who say, I'm not voting top of the ticket, but I'll vote everybody else.
Right, right. And I think we saw some of that happen as well. But when it comes to people who split their ticket, I think a lot of people cited several different things. One is there is universal frustration in this country, much of it, I actually think, justified, that is raging at a political establishment that centers corporate interests, billionaires, and puts their needs ahead of the needs of working Americans. And we know that we can either channel this righteous rage, because there are people whose SNAP was cut off, their child tax credits were cut off, but they're seeing people like Elon Musk getting tax breaks and kissing up to Donald Trump in order to do so.
But they vote for, then why vote for Elon Musk and Donald Trump?
And I think that, of course, is the question.
It makes no sense.
And I think part of it has to do with the fact that, and I think we're still in a process of going through the data. It's important to say that.
Yes.
And I actually think that it's important to say that the people who are rushing to say, let me give you my grand theory of what's going on right now.
The problem is you went too woke. Sorry, Kamala Harris was running with Liz Cheney at her side. She wasn't going, quote unquote, woke.
If we had an election on November 5th and November 6th, you've got an answer.
Right.
Don't listen to those people.
I agreed.
Do not listen to those people.
Co-signed.
So I want to say that we should all have the humility of saying this is an ongoing learning process. However, there is something to be said about it doesn't matter that he's lying. He's saying that I'm fighting for you. In all of this debate that people are talking about with this woke thing, right?
Yeah.
Oh, my gosh. It's because we care about trans people, and that's why.
And by the way, only Donald Trump cared about trans people because he was the one running $130 million worth of ads. The Harris campaign said nothing about this issue.
That's right. That's right. And listen, the ads, it's not to even deny the fact that these ads were effective in certain areas. What I think people are paying too much attention to is the first half of that ad, which says Kamala Harris is, or that said, Kamala Harris is for they, them. Everyone's focusing on that. They're not focusing on the second half of that ad, where he said, Donald Trump is for you.
Yeah, yeah.
And Democrats very often, in their messaging, they speak in terms and in concepts and not in the second person. I care about you. And political races are not about one candidate versus another candidate. Too often it gets pigeonholed like that. It is a race to convince a person about who cares about you more.
Let me ask you this question, because we've been talking a lot about RFK Jr. My mind is a bit blown. I mean, we knew that Donald Trump would go wild. There's no constraints on him. He could just put all his friends in. But we're talking about RFK Jr. and the possibility of people pulling back on measles vaccines, on another pandemic happening. You're talking about Matt Gaetz. There's a 17-year-old girl out there terrified that all of her records, all of the witnesses against him in this case where she was trafficked could be in the hands of Matt Gaetz, and he could be the most powerful law enforcement official in the country in a case where the president of the United States is an adjudicated sexual abuser. If you're a sexual assault survivor, you're thinking, oh my God, this country 100%. Is out to get me. They're out to get me and force me to have children by sexual assault. So the message to women has been insane, okay? And the people he's nominating are TV hosts, et cetera. Do you think the people who voted for him that you've talked to were expecting this?
No.
Or true mass deportation.
Genuinely,
yeah.
No. And it's heartbreaking, actually. It is heartbreaking. And people may want to take like a kind of vengeful stance about this, but it is genuinely heartbreaking. People need to understand that there are people, millions of people in this country, and I was one of them, where you are working 2-3 shifts a day to try to make ends meet. You're not reading the newspaper every morning with a cup of coffee.
Yeah.
You're not. And it's not to say that people are uneducated or uninformed or anything like that. But like, this is real life. Yeah. This is real life. You got a baby on your hip and you've got 2-3 shifts to work in that day and you're just trying to make things work and you have such an overwhelm of information. And I actually think something that is different about this moment than I saw, whether it was 2020 or after 2016, is that almost like right the day after, people immediately said, were coming to me and saying, he's not actually going to do that, right? And it's important to say, people may often say, he said he was going to do this. It was right here on the campaign trail. If you actually listen to him, if you listen to Donald Trump's acceptance speech, when he talked about immigration, he talked about legal pathways first.
Yeah. Yeah, he didn't say he was going to do.
He didn't lead with mass deportation.
Absolutely. Okay, I'm going to hold you. We're going to hold you over if you don't mind. We're going to hold for one more. We're going to take a quick break, pay for all of this, and then when we come back, AOC will still be right here with me. Stay right there. Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez is back with me. We were talking a little bit about the shock that people are feeling about not really thinking Donald Trump was going to do the things he was doing. Let's talk about mass deportation. Do you think the 55% of Latino men, the 40-some-odd percent of Latinas, thought he was really going to do it?
No, I think what is interesting, kind of what we were discussing earlier, is that one of the things that I learned when I was asking about people who voted for Donald Trump and me, I asked them, where do you get your news from? How do you, take in information, right? Yeah. And one of the things that they said is that one of their primary trusted sources of information was, they said you, as in me.
Yeah.
That means that they rely on me as their elected official for information directly. It also means that they are listening to him directly for his information. And as we said earlier, in Donald Trump's victory speech, he said that when he talked about immigration, the first thing that he talked about was legal pathways. He talked about mass deportation afterwards. And so I think people who believe what he says, when he says we're only going after criminals, they think that he's going after somebody else. Meanwhile, the Republican Party, the Trump campaign, people like Stephen Miller, they believe that being undocumented means you are a criminal.
Right. And they don't understand that. I want to talk about a couple of the picks that, as you said, people may not have saw coming. Matt Gaetz, you've had to deal with him as a member of Congress. How concerned are you about him being Attorney General?
I think right now the mood on the Hill, there's a lot of Republican uproar about it. I find it interesting, too. It's important to note that Matt Gaetz won general election to the 119th Congress. So he resigned his seat.
That he just won.
To finish this term.
Yeah.
The seat that he just won starts in January.
Right.
So he may just be away from Congress for 2 months.
Yeah.
Potentially just to expunge this ethics report.
Do you think it'll come out, the ethics report?
Well, I think there's a large jurisdiction. I don't know if the Ethics Committee has a legal grounds now to release it.
Yeah.
I do wonder if the Senate would subpoena it in order to understand and make have a fully informed decision.
Yeah.
Similar to, I think, when you had Justice Kavanaugh with credible sexual assault allegations, and there was an FBI report, and that whole investigation is something else, a different matter. But the Senate, it was still relevant to a Senate confirmation hearing. And so I think that's an open question as to whether the Senate would subpoena it. I wonder if the Democratic Senate majority now would be able to do that as well. I don't know. These are open legal questions.
And people would have to not fear that then he would be confirmed and then go after them. Let's talk about RFK Jr. And we were talking a little bit in the break. Let's bring that forward to TV. Some of the concerns you have about what he might do to HHS.
Yeah, I think what's very important, too, is that, yes, there are these concerns about that. You have a baby, and anywhere in the world, I mean, protecting against polio, against measles, against very serious communicable diseases that, I mean, we would be talking about going back to the, 1700s, 1800s. I mean, this is serious. But on top of that, if you're a Republican that voted for Donald Trump, you believe in his agenda, something that is broadly popular among Republicans and Democrats are community health centers. If you live in a rural area and there's not a hospital very close to you, but there is a community center closer to you, it could be decimated under Robert F. Kennedy. And we're talking about people who live in rural communities. We're talking about people who live in underserved communities that have been neglected. In order to, whether it's to get a shot or just to get checked up on, we're talking about the potential decimation of community health centers.
And we haven't even gotten to Tulsi Gabbard potentially having access to national security information. And Russia loves it, loves her.
And I actually think almost more than Matt Gaetz, Tulsi Gabbard's appointment is devastating. And Tulsi Gabbard's nomination, as much as she says that she's an anti-war person, she's not. She supports very pro-war individuals.
Including
abroad.
in Syria.
And let's be very clear, a Tulsi Gabbard nomination is a pro-war nomination globally. Point blank, period.
As is Donald Trump as president of the United States. Congresswoman Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, thank you so much.
Of course, thank you.
Much appreciated. Thank you. And we'll